We have Lisa Denny here with us from Early Impact Virginia. She's going to talk with us to give us all a good foundation of home visiting and how they support pregnant and parenting families in Virginia. And then if questions come to you kind of as she's doing, she's going to talk at first with some slides and share some information. And then we're going to have a good amount of time at the end to really get a discussion going, get questions answered. And remember for SC Chats, not just Lisa holding all the answers too, it's you all being able to share experiences and answers that you might know from all of your experiences. So if anything comes to mind, you don't want to forget it, feel free to put it in the chat. We're going to collect questions too, but just I want you to just to know that we'll definitely have that discussion part coming at the end. So without further ado, I want to welcome Lisa Denny. She is the Workforce Development Manager for Early Impact Virginia, which I often refer to as EIV. So I'll turn it over to Lisa and she'll ground us in home visiting.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for referring to also as EIV, because I frequently will interchange the two, but yes, we are all one and the same. I'm glad to be here today. I'm Lisa Denny. As Lorelei mentioned, I'm the Workforce Development Manager with Early Impact Virginia, and I'm coming to you from Roanoke, Virginia. So when Lorelei talks about fall and the leaves in full bloom and full color, most definitely is what we're having here in Roanoke as well. Like I said, will welcome questions at any point in time, but we will sort of try to save them for the end just so that we can get through the content of information. So home visiting, who is Early Impact Virginia? Early childhood home visiting has long been recognized as an effective strategy for strengthening families, improving the health and well-being of young children and their adult caregivers, while also advancing school readiness by supporting parents in their role as their child's first teacher. In addition to consistently producing strong outcomes for young families, we know that home visiting is a smart, cost-effective strategy with demonstrated returns on investment for more than $5 for every dollar spent. EIV serves as the state's central hub for all things home visiting. While we don't provide services directly to families, rather we support local programs across Virginia in their efforts through professional development, coordination, and continuous quality improvement. We also support state and local policymakers in decision making regarding home visiting by providing them with data, research, and other linkages to leaders in the fields of early childhood across Virginia. We know that home visiting as a strategy has been around for many years. Voluntary home visiting services matches families with trained professionals to provide information and support during pregnancy and throughout their child's first earliest years. As you all know, those critical years of development. Quality, voluntary, evidence-based home visiting programs cultivate healthy prenatal behaviors, parenting attitudes, engage infants in meaningful learning activities, create a positive adult-child bond, promote family self-sufficiency, and provide a link to needed resources. So as you'll see from the screen is that we really work to advance and accelerate the growth of home visiting. That's Early Impact Virginia's mission. And we support the services of a variety of home visiting models across Virginia. So as you will see that in Virginia, we have a very robust home visiting delivery system where there's over 71 community-based programs that serve over 7,000 children every year. They're located in 120 different localities across Virginia with over 500 dedicated professionals who are delivering the service. As you'll hear me say later on, that while we have a robust system here in Virginia, we still are not meeting the need of all children in that those early years and all families who would be eligible for home visiting services. So what I want to do is get a sense from our audience today, how many are you familiar with a home visiting program in your community? So what I'd love for you to do is to put in the chat, just answer this question. Are you aware of a home visiting program in your community? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. And it's okay to not be sure. So just populate the chat with what your familiarity is with early childhood home visiting in your community. So what are we seeing, Lorelei, since I can't see the chat very easily? You're muted. Lorelei, you're muted.
I am muted. I thought I took it off. So we've got a lot of yeses. I'm seeing that folks like from Harrisonburg and some Northern Virginia systems know of their visiting programs. I am not sure. And I'm not sure who 2524 is, if that's maybe one of our friends from out of state. Um, but on the whole, people are saying yes. There's just a couple of unsures.
Wonderful. That's great because that is not always what we see. When we start talking about early childhood home visiting, a lot of individuals, depending on where they're coming from, are like, first of all, what is it? I'm not sure if it's in my community. I've never interfaced with them within my community, which leads me to my second question. How many of you have ever made a referral with a family that you're working with, either in your current job or in previous positions, to a early childhood home visiting program in your community? And again, just put in the chat yes or no if you have ever made those referrals.
We're getting some yeses rolling in.
I love it.
Only about 5 or 6 so far, 7 in the chat, but yeah,
Okay, well, I
most of
love
it.
it. I love to hear because one of the questions we frequently receive, especially from our either our home visiting partners or our early intervention partners, is can a family be receiving both services? Because we know that EI services are in the home as well, home visiting services are in the home. Is that opportunity for that collaborative relationship where a family could be receiving both services? And the answer is yes. And there are families who would benefit from receiving both EI services as well as early childhood home visiting services. And then there are all kinds of ways that those two organizations can collaborate so as to way to share information, share resources, not overwhelm the families that are being served, and then better coordinate those services. And we can talk more about that at the end in our open discussion. But it's an important thing to understand is that a family can receive both. And there are great ways that those two entities can work together to best support families. So let's talk a little bit about what home visiting is. And I think that is one of the most important things is that home visiting is designed as a prevention strategy. We're really looking at working and supporting families in a way to prevent challenges from occurring in the future. It's all about strengthening the families, relationships, building resilience and capacity. It's to help ensure that parents and children have the skills and resources they need to build and support lifelong health and well-being. Home visitors love babies. They love kids. That's why a lot of us go into this field is because of our love and desire to support children and families. Well, there are lots of opportunities for home visitors to love on and play with the little ones. Their role really is focused about supporting parents to build that healthy, nurturing relationship with their babies. So we do all of that through education and coaching. So one of the questions that people always has is when a home visitor is engaged with the family, is the home visitor the one interacting with the child? And the answer is most of the time, no. The home visitor is interacting and coaching the parent with education and support and talking through things, but it's the parent that's engaging with that child because we want to foster that relationship and want to make sure parents are aware that they are their primary child's teacher in those first couple of years of life. And they are to have them feel empowered to be in that role and to have a home visitor step in and do with the child instead of the parent doing with the child. It sends that message that we don't have that confidence in the parent's ability. And that is not the case. So our role is really there to coach the parent in their interactions. Another critical element with home visiting is that it is voluntary. Home visiting is all about partnering with families. Families invite us into their homes, invite us into their lives, and that is truly a sacred responsibility and relationship to be able to enter into someone's life and into their home during a time that is where they are the most vulnerable. Most of our families enroll in services during pregnancy or immediately after the birth. And so we know this is a time where vulnerability, where there's lots of changes, there's lots of stress going on with this family, and support is needed. And the need for support is often greater than any other period of time in a family's life and in a family's existence. So we're really entering that family home in a time when they are full of sort of stress and challenges, but also ripe for support and ripe for assistance. And finally, the piece that I'd like to talk more about, and I will talk more about, is what we actually do with it. So what is our role? What are the things that we do? And we talk, and this is what, when we talk about why home visiting works, is because it comes down to that true understanding of the role of the home visitor. Their capacity for developing trusting relationships with families is what makes it work. So a home visitor's ability to enter into this relationship in a way that is building that trust, building that connection, is what makes those relationships work. Home visitors come from all walks of life and backgrounds and experiences. We have home visitors that come from a nursing background where their primary education is that medical field. We have home visitors that have come through the ranks, so to speak. Maybe they were a family who received home visiting services at some point in time in their life, then got either a degree or something of that nature. We have home visitors that come from a social work background or human services. So they really do come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. They also come from their own life experiences. Many home visitors themselves are parents, and they can sort of pull from those experiences as well when they share and interact with the families. The greatest asset that home visitors bring is that relational aspect, that ability to connect and to build that relationship with the parents or the caregivers. They also have to have an ability to care and nurture, but they also have to be knowledgeable and tenacious. As you all know, just as much as we do, that the needs of families across Virginia and across the country are quite diverse, and they really run the gamut from when it comes to needs related to healthcare and housing, diapering, feeding, just parenting in general. The needs of individual families are quite diverse, and home visitors really have to be knowledgeable about all of these different issues and have resources available that they can link families to, whether it be resources from their own information or linkage to other providers within their community. But we also know that home visitors don't have to be experts on everything. It would be impossible for anyone to be an expert about everything that a family could face. So really having that knowledge about what are the resources in their community is a critical part of the home visitor's role, because we don't want to assume that we can do everything for this family, because we can't. And we cannot make those sort of that assumption and that sort of lead that approach in the work. We really do need to make sure we are aware of what's available in our community and have those relationships with those community providers so that we can easily make referrals and stay connected, and again, foster that collaborative nature in the work that we do with families. So why home visiting? So we've talked a little bit about is that home visiting is all about prevention. We're trying to prevent challenges from occurring or address challenges that may have already started occurring within a family. But when we look at sort of the outcomes that we're looking at within home visiting, is that it is proven to benefit families and children in our communities. Research has shown us that families who are engaged in home visiting, moms and babies are healthier, children are better prepared for school, children are safer in the homes that they're in, and families are more self-sufficient. Again, it's a prevention strategy used to support pregnant and parenting families to promote that positive health, behavioral health, development, school readiness outcomes, and to help to prevent child abuse and neglect. You'll hear a lot about home visiting and its impact on child abuse and neglect. And it's not only just to prevent it from happening the initial occurrence of abuse and neglect, but also related to repeated occurrences of abuse and neglect, depending on when the family was referred to services and their involvement. So we've talked a little bit about how home visiting works, but now I'll talk a little bit about the actual services that are provided within home visiting. Home visiting, the work that we do, the approach that we take with the families is very customized and very individualized to the family that's in front of us. So all of the programs that are here in Virginia, and even I would even go as far to say across the country, utilize structured curriculums when it comes to the content that they share with families. But the approach that they take, the information that they may spend more time focused on, and the goals of a specific home visit or an interaction with a family is very individualized to the family that's being served. So there is a lot of flexibility within home visiting to make sure that we are meeting the challenges that the families are facing, as well as celebrating the successes. And I think it's important for us to remember is that home visiting isn't all about addressing challenges, but also about celebrating those successes that families have. We often refer to home visitors as relationship experts. Not only must they be skilled at developing those relationships, but they're developing relationships with families from all different backgrounds, with different cultural backgrounds and experiences, but also families with different experiences themselves in their own childhood that then impacts their ability to engage with their children. They're also relationship experts for families as they learn to develop healthy, strong relationships within their own family system. And this is something that is really critical, specifically for our younger families. We all know that families in our communities have suffered traumas or experienced adverse childhood experiences that can impact the way they engage with their children. And home visiting can help tailor services in a way to address those, but to provide that necessary support for them, for those parents, as they navigate their role as their child's first teacher. We do things like screening and assessments within home visiting. So we'll screen for child development and delays, and then make referrals, maternal and child health, perinatal depression, intimate partner violence, and substance use are all the types of screenings that we do throughout our relationship with a family. Some of these happen early on in the building of that relationship, and then others are ongoing. Again, referral to community resources, and then parent education and support. So that teaching, that mentoring and coaching that the home visitor does as they engage with families. So this is a quote that we received from one of a family who was receiving services here in Virginia. And this parent stated, "My home visitor is awesome. She has taken the time to really know me and my family. She knows my needs before her visits. If I have questions she doesn't know the answer, she takes the time to find out. She has been a huge support in my life." And I think this quote really sums up the relationship that home visitors have with the families that they serve, is that we are there to provide support. We're there to answer questions, but we're also there to empower the families to know that they are experts when it comes to their own family situation and their children, and that we are there just to support and foster their expertise and to continue to help them grow in their role. So what makes home visiting work? What I'm going to do, if we can get the technology to work well, is I want to show you a video. It's actually a video that we didn't create, but that we produced, that highlights one of our programs. But the reason I like to show this one is it not just highlights this specific program that is providing amazing quality home visiting in their community, but it really shows the elements of what home visiting is and what that relationship is that families families have with their home visitors. So I'm going to see if I can get this to work correctly. And please tell me if you are not hearing when I
first met Kim, and she was just like, just not as approachable as she is now. I mean, there's a lot of people that were coming in and out of your life, and they're like, trust me, and you don't really have that relationship built up with them yet. So,
Well, I mean, that's hard to do after you have so many people lie to you and lie to you. And then after I got pregnant with her and everything stopped, I had nobody. I didn't even know what the meaning of the word support was until I met y'all, and that's what helped.
you accepting that support system was the biggest thing.
Yeah, it was hard though. It was hard.
Humankind's mission has been the same ever since I've known the organization, which is a little over 6 years ago. It's strengthening individuals and families through care, counseling, and education. And I always like to add my other piece in there because by strengthening individuals and families, you're also strengthening the community.
The impact that we have on our families is that we are able to build their confidence. As I've learned when I first became a supervisor and attended core training, that parents want the best for their kids, and sometimes there are barriers that are in front of them that prevent them from parenting, and so we've seen them overcome those barriers. We're connecting them to resources.
We saw a threefold increase in our babies being born with NAS, which is narcotic abstinence syndrome. We opened a clinic in 2016, so our moms come to the clinic. Healthy Families is involved from the beginning. So I think trusting relationships with these moms is the thing that's made the clinic just a huge difference.
Well, I'm always happy when you come. You know, you always take my mind. If I've got stuff going on, I've always got stuff going on, it seems like, and you're always like there to listen. And you know, just down to earth, and it's like my best friend's coming to see me, you know. So, and plus, you know, you help her, and she remembers you, and she lights up when she sees you. You have to wake up every day and say, I'm gonna do this. I mean, you have to do it, and sometimes it takes, you know, all day, and then sometimes you have to just do it second by second. She started crawling about a month and a half before they say to, and now she's standing up by herself, and she's taking a few steps here and there. And she's just 10 months, so she's doing really good. She's really on the mark after her 6-month developmental check.
Just seeing the way that you interact with her is what's the most touching and beautiful part about what on my end.
Just Humankind as a whole is an awesome place to work. You can see just by the area that we work in, the environment, and the culture. I experienced one of the toughest times of my life, and it was really the support of my coworkers that helped me really make it through that tough time. So I am honored, and I find it's a privilege that I get to go to work and come with people who really not only care about our clients, but they care about me, and we care about each other.
Okay, so as you saw from this video, yes, it was specifically related to our Humankind home visiting program, which is in the Lynchburg area. But it really illustrated, you heard the mom talking about trust and information and her child developing higher sort of higher developmentally on target in terms of her development, being able to walk earlier and things of that nature. But it was all about that relationship. It was really focused on this mom who saw her home visitor as someone she could count on, and as someone that she had that relationship with, that she could trust, that would provide her with support and information. And that's really the core of what makes home visiting work, is that we build that relationship with those families from the moment we walk in the door until the moment the family graduates from the programs that they're in. And we'll talk a minute about what that looks like, since every program is different, but it's all about that relationship. And the work that we do and the impact that we have on the families that we work with would not happen if it wasn't for that relationship between the home visitor and the families that they serve. So when we look at home visitors in Virginia, we really do see that there's a lot of diversity. So about 86% of our home visitors come to the profession as sort of lay individuals, whether it be people with human service backgrounds or social work or things of that nature. So they're really looking at that human service type of professional. About 12% of our workforce are nurses. And again, like I said, we have specific programs in Virginia, Nurse Family Partnership being one, and CHIP being the other, that have the primary deliverer of home visiting services is a nurse. And those services look obviously from that medical perspective. Then we have about 2% of our population that are sort of other. So we have some home visiting programs that have lactation counselors on their staff who provide home visiting. They could be mental health, clinicians who are providing the services, or outreach workers and things of that nature. You can see on the chart on the right that our home visitors really do mirror sort of the families that we're serving. So a large percentage of our home visiting workforce is Caucasian, and then about 35% of the families are also of Caucasian background. We do have a large representation of Spanish speaking families that are being served by home visiting, and we can match that with Spanish speaking home visitors. Those are definitely in different pockets across the Commonwealth in terms of the level of family or the number of families that need services in Spanish matched with a Spanish speaking home visitor. But we definitely see that as well. When we talk about the impact or look at home visiting in Virginia, we know through our data, and this one is from fiscal year 2023, that over 57,000 home visits were completed during that time. There were over 9,000 screenings, and those include, like I said, the child developmental screenings, caregiver depression, intimate partner violence screening. Over 6,700 children were served, and 6,400 families were served during this year by home visiting. 1,700 of them were pregnant women. So again, you'll see in a couple of slides, or actually in the next slide, that all of our home visiting models here in Virginia enroll families in that prenatal period. And that's really sort of the hope and the goal of programs, is to enroll prenatally, because we know the sooner we can interact with the family, the more likely we'll be able to have really long-standing impact on the family situation. So in that year, 545 home visitors are dedicated professionals to the field and to the families that they were serving. So when we look at, again, I mentioned that there are, 7 home visiting models here in Virginia. Sorry, 8 home visiting models here in Virginia. All of them, their enrollment period, which is the pink bar on our bar graph, starts in that prenatal period. Each of the program models can enroll parents at different periods of time, but they all do prenatal enrollments. Their service period really does vary based on the model. So some of our programs, that parents graduate from the program when their child turns 2. Others may graduate from the program when the child enters preschool or enters kindergarten, so that 3 to 5 age range. We do have some programs that can continue to work with their families until the child turns 6. So it really does vary by the model. And that's why I strongly encourage, as you start to think about models or programs that you will refer to with the families in your community, is you find out those pieces of information. We do have some programs that are required to enroll within the first year, and they are unable to accept families or enroll families after that period of time. So again, it goes back to that importance of having that relationship with the models that are served within your communities to make sure that you're referring the family to the appropriate program. The other thing is that a lot of our communities, and you'll see that in a slide or two that I'll show you in a minute, is that a lot of communities have multiple programs. Here in the Roanoke Valley, we have a Healthy Families program as well as a CHIP program. So having those relationships with those different models will help to figure out which model would be the best program to refer a family to. So you'll definitely see that there are communities that have multiple home visiting programs that serve families. While I said before that we have a very robust representation here in Virginia, we don't cover it all. So as you'll see from this chart, the graph, the white colored areas of Virginia are communities and localities where there are no home visiting programs at all. And so you'll see that's kind of all like in the middle of the state, and then also up on the sort of the far left side area. The white is, like I said, no home visiting programs. The dark blue and the lighter blue show the highest saturation of kids at risk that are served with home visiting programs. But again, it's not, even with communities that have large percentages or large numbers of home visiting programs, because of requirements based on the number of home visitors a family or number of families a home visitor can work with, we are definitely not meeting the need that is out there. So this chart represents that there were 68 home visiting programs serving over 6,700 children in 120 communities. So you might be wondering, how do I find out if there's a home visiting program in my area? And what I strongly encourage you to do is to either scan the QR code on the screen in front of you, or go to Early Impact Virginia's website, which is earlyimpactva.org, and you can find a directory of all of the home visiting programs in Virginia, alphabetized by the community that they serve. So it'll take you to this directory. You will see what are the home visiting programs in that community, and then direct links to those programs, and to their websites and more information on how to find a program in that community. And I'm actually, since we're running early on time, I will actually take you to that. Sorry to make you look through that. So it takes you directly to our website. Are you seeing our website?
No, I think you might have to change your share screen.
Okay, so let's stop sharing. Now are you seeing our website now?
Yep.
So this is our directory of home visiting programs. And if you just scroll down to, and I'm just going to pick a random letter of the alphabet. And so we're in B. And so we know in Virginia, the communities in Virginia that have a B are Bath. Is it still not showing?
It is. Any chance you could click Buena Vista?
Sure. So if we look at
There you
Buena
go.
Vista, we got to scroll all the way down to it. We will see that the only early childhood home visiting programs that serve the community of Buena Vista City are Baby Care, which is run through the Virginia Department of Health, so through the health department, and Humankind, which is the program that we saw spotlighted on our video. So you can see that some communities have a very robust early childhood home visiting offerings and a lot of programs that serve them. Other communities have little or none. So as you can see above it, Buchanan County, which is in far southwest Virginia, has one program. And then we also have Buckingham County that has none. So that's the nice thing about this directory, is that you can go through the alphabet, pick the community the county you live in, or city, because some of them are broken down by city, click on it, and it will take you directly to what services are available in that community, what home visiting programs. It has the highlighted is the name of the name of the organization, excuse me, and then below that is the name of the program that they offer within that organization, and then their contact information as well. Let me stop sharing. So like I said, if you were to use the QR code or go directly to our website, you can get that information that way. Another way to learn more is to contact me. So here's my information. You can feel free to email me at ldenny@earlyimpactva.org, or we have another website, which is our homevisitingworks.org, which has more information, again, about early childhood home visiting here in Virginia, and other ways to get connected with us and other resources that we offer out in the community. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it for questions. And if there was anything in the chat.
I think some people are probably mulling over their questions now. I have lots, but I'll start with one that I saw come up in the chat. Corey Hill asked, for areas in Virginia that have no home visiting programs, do you know why?
Great question. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. Funding is always the biggest one. If there is not funding available to expand home visiting into those communities, that could be one of the challenges that that community is facing. We also know that a community has to be ready. And I think that's a great way to sort of put it in perspective. A community needs to be ready to be able to embrace a home visiting. And in terms of that, is you have to look at all the different players that are important parts of the puzzle to have a home visiting program. So there needs to be a structure. There needs to be an organization who's willing to take that lead. There needs to be a desire from the community, from the individuals in that community, from those the parties who would be involved, that desire to have this type of service in place and to build those connections. And there has to be some type of infrastructure. I know here in Roanoke, so 7 years ago, no, probably 8 years ago now, we did not have a healthy families program here in Roanoke, but there was a desire to have it. And so groups came together with the desire to address the issues we have with child abuse and neglect and the numbers of kids in foster care here in the Roanoke Valley. And so that desire came together to look at what could we do to help address this issue. And the outcome was to develop and to bring Healthy Families, which is a national model, here to this community. But then we had to build the infrastructure. We had to secure the funding, again, to continue those relationships with those providers to make sure that this was a program that could be sustained. And I think there are some communities, and if you look at the listing of those that do not have home visiting, some of it is those reasons. There's not that infrastructure for that sustainability. There is support across at the state level for bringing programs to underserved communities, but there really does have to be that grassroots support for it as well for them to be successful.
Thanks, Lisa. I know that's also why I had you look up Buena Vista, because that's one of the localities in my county. And I know Robin Richard is on this call too. She's the local systems manager in Rockbridge County. And it's a conversation we've had as well about, but there's one of those issues is we don't have the infrastructure currently. And that's something we've been talking about. I'm wondering about when I was listening, and I'd love for you guys to put your questions in chat or unmute to share either experiences you've had with home visiting, questions you have. One of the questions that comes to mind for me, Lisa, is I'm listening through how you're, describing and talking about the role of the home visitor. And also I'm thinking about the role of the service coordinator. And there seems to be some overlap. And also, as you talked about too, like the importance of really wanting to, we want to streamline things, we want to be effective. And what are some suggestions you have when it comes to how to collaborate between the two and across the two programs?
It's a great question. I think one of the things I want to also chime in before I that I think will also help address that is that when we look at early childhood home visiting, the frequency that a home visitor is in the home with families does vary. And so some of our models have weekly home visits, that the home visitor is there every week. And so I think there is a wonderful opportunity for that relationship when it comes to the home visitor and the EI service provider because of that frequency of our visits. So you may only be in the home maybe once a month or every other week or something, but having that overlap between home visiting and EI it's a very natural marriage between. So let's say in an EI visit, they're working on fine motor skills. We're just going to throw that out as an example. So if the home visitor knows, okay, so at this last visit, we were working on fine motor skills, that home visitor can bring in additional resources or activities that they can do in their home visit focused on that as well. So having that coordinated, I don't want to say coordinated service plan, but sort of that joint collaborative service plan or service approach really can be one where we're really doubling the impact of the services because we're all working on the same thing together, just at different times. There's also that ability to have communications between the service providers. I've had a lot of times, so prior to my role here at Early Impact, I was the director of the home visiting healthy families program here in Roanoke. And so we would have our home visitor talking with the EI person about not just their service plans, but if there were things that we saw happening in the home that we wanted to make them aware of. So maybe the parent didn't say, or let them know that there was all kinds of additional stress going on in the home that could impact the parent's ability to engage with their child in their assignments or things that they were working on for EI. The home visitor could then share those things and vice versa. There may be things that your developmental specialist is learning about with a family that maybe we don't know, but really could impact the delivery of the services that we're providing. So it really is that natural relationship and that natural marriage that can occur through information sharing, through shared family goals or things of that nature, through shared curriculum. I mean, it might even go so far as we learn that we're all doing the same ages and stages questionnaire for and so it might make sense that you do it now, but we need to do it again, that we can share what those results look like and sort of all of those things. So again, we're tailoring those services to making sure we're meeting the needs of the family, but not necessarily being duplicative, but really being supportive.
Yeah.
So I think there's all of those opportunities as well as I'm sure there are things that you are allowed to do, for lack of a better word, that maybe we're not, and vice versa. That there might be things that the home visitor is permitted to doing or engaging with a family that you necessarily can't, but by having that relationship, we can learn those things. And again, to better support the families that we're working with.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And again, I don't want to soak up all of Lisa's time because I get to pick her brain a lot. So I'd love for you all to join in if you have questions. But the next thing that comes to mind for me too is then when are Lisa, as you know, one of the kind of like the big focus for Virginia early intervention for our state's systemic improvement plan has been social emotional development, infants and toddlers. And one of the things we're all working on is really being able to expand and hone our abilities to support families. And when it comes to you know enabling families to really engage and grow the robust healthy social emotional development in their children. And I'm wondering, when would you recommend referring, like, oh, this is when I should refer to a home visitor? Like, what are some of the things when like a family says X or you observe X, this would be a great time to recommend home visiting?
Well, and I think across the board, I think any family can benefit from home visiting. So it really doesn't have to be that family who you're seeing has experiencing tons of challenges or that you feel is experiencing more stress than the average family, whoever that is. I don't know what the average family is nowadays, but I think you can think about it in terms of that respect. So those families who you feel have a lot of burdens or a lot of stressors, but you can also think about it just as any family that you're working with could benefit. And then just offering, talking to the family and say, I know about this program. Again, it goes back to that relationship between providers and really having that understanding of what each program can do. I know of this program that really focuses on, again, building supports and all of that. Is this something you might be interested in learning more about? And then that would be an opportunity for that referral. All of our home visiting programs, when they first go into to meet a family, they're not going in there to sell home visiting. They're going in there to help the families understand what home visiting is and could do in support of them. But again, these are all voluntary programs. And that is the crux of early childhood home visiting in Virginia, is that it's voluntary. Families can choose to participate and not. They can choose at what point in time they want to participate, as well as at what point in time they no longer desire the support that they're receiving from their home visitor. So that's one of the important pieces. But again, you can look at families in terms of if there are families that are experiencing a lot of stress, if they're families with multiple children. So maybe the EI specialist is working with an older child, but now they know mom is pregnant. That would be a prime case for a referral for home visiting to help mom help support mom during her pregnancy, and then in the birth of this second child, or the third or fourth child in some instances, because again, we know the adding of children to a family adds stress, adds potential challenges, that the family could benefit from additional supports around.
Yeah, no, I love what you just said too, because it's not just families who might, as you said, like might be struggling or might be having kind of an increased number of stressors. It's really that everybody could benefit if the family's open, if that's something that works for them.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering, in our crew of people who are here, has anyone here had the opportunity to collaborate with or an early childhood home visitor, whether in Virginia or not in Virginia? If you don't mind putting in chat, just letting us know if you've had that chance, because I'd love to hear a little bit more about what your experiences were, and even maybe if there are some barriers that we could troubleshoot together.
It's a great question. Yeah, I'd love to hear that as well.
So we're seeing a yes or two. If anybody who's popped in there, if they wouldn't mind unmiking, or turning your mic on. Unmiking, I'm not sure that's a term, but if you'll turn your microphone on, if you wouldn't mind, and just letting us know kind of what your experiences have been, what worked well,
Or
maybe
what
what
didn't
was,
work well. I
yeah,
think we
what
need,
didn't work well,
yeah.
because we'd love to troubleshoot some challenges.
Hi, this is Rami, and I work
Hi,
in the
Ronnie.
Piedmont area. How are you?
Hi.
My group, the agency I work for, has early intervention and healthy families. So I wouldn't say we collaborate a lot, but I do have a couple families that do have both services. Unfortunately, sometimes a family has healthy families and I didn't even know about it. So there's something that's not working well, the communication there. But I do have one family that gets both services. And one day I happened to be in the house as the service coordinator, and the healthy families person was there as well, because mom kind of double booked us because she forgot that one of us was coming. But it was nice though to see like what kind of things she talks about with them. And it was more educational stuff, because the older child, it wasn't for the child I was serving, but the older child was going to school. So she was helping them with that kind of thing. So it was really interesting for me to see what she talks about with the family. But I do feel that sometimes, even though we're right there in the same agency and actually in the same building, sometimes we don't know that the family has healthy families also, in addition to early intervention.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, because you are, as you said, you are already in the same agency, you're in the same actual physical building, but we're still so siloed in Virginia.
I know, I don't understand that.
Yeah, Lisa, do you have any suggestions? Have you guys helped troubleshoot anything similar to this?
Well, and I think that goes back to the point you just made about us still being very siloed, but also the fact that we rely on the families to let others know when they're receiving services. Because unfortunately, even within the same agency, I'm sure your Healthy Families program and you all couldn't communicate with each other without signed releases and things of that nature. So we really do put the onus, unfortunately, in the lap of the families that are being served, because we can't divulge information for HIPAA purposes until they sign. But I think the best thing you can always do is just to ask the question of the family. as you come in to start to providing your services, and I know home visiting programs, maybe not across the board, but do this as well. So who else are you working with? And maybe it's not specific to the child that I'm working with, but are there other people who are supports for you? Whether they be family or other providers and things of that nature. So really just asking that broad question of who else is a support in your life. And it very well may be that that's the point that they announce or divulge other providers that they're working with. But what a valuable piece of information for you to know if there are no other providers, but their support is their church or their next door neighbor or family members or things of that nature. It provides that wealth of knowledge that we may not have known when we walked in that door, but might help to get at that other providers that they're working with as well. You're muted, Lorelai.
Of course I am. And I just actually wrote that down. I love that idea of just asking who else, because, and also sometimes, and I've encountered in my work where families might not even know the program that person is with, but they just know that there's this great person that comes, and this is kind of the things they talk about, and you might have to backtrack a little bit to find out who that person is. But if the family's able to mention that somebody's coming in doing this work, it would be great to connect with
Yeah,
them and add them to your if the family's up for it, add them to your I can't even word find, be able to
sign
communicate,
release.
release, communicate, yeah, your release forms too.
Yeah.
So that line can be open, because you never know. We want to talk when there aren't emergencies, but then there also could be times when it does become critical to talk.
Yeah, we found that a lot here with our home visiting program here when I was running here in Roanoke, is that the families may not remember that they were working with Healthy Families or with Children's Trust. That was the organization, but they could remember Miss Christie. And Miss Christie would come to their house and she'd come every week and she'd been working with them and since since she was pregnant. And by getting those pieces of information, you could probably piece together what program they might be referring to. But yeah, it was frequent that the parents couldn't remember the name of the program or any of those things, but they could remember the name of the home visitor.
Yeah. So huge tidbit of information there, kind of integrating and thinking through where you could ask, who else is coming in and working and being a support, who else is being a support with your family. Are there other questions that you guys have, or comments or experiences you'd like to talk through related to home visiting? Oh, we're thinking there too. I'm wondering, again, I'll pick your brain another time, Lisa, but I did want to just remind everyone who's here, if you haven't had a chance yet, VEIPD, so that's me, Virginia Early Intervention Professional Development Center, along with Corey Hill and Morgan Colleton and Lisa Terry, among others. We collaborated with Early Impact Virginia and with Lisa Denny here to put together a workshop we call Elevated EI. And I will make sure that we kind of share that information with you all too, that we did a workshop on substance use in homes and how to support families. And that workshop is now open for, the recording is now up if you'd like to view that too, because there are also just some really wonderful, just universal kind of strategies and information, then also just really great information about substance use and supporting families overall. Lisa has just put in the chat her contact information and then also the website for Early Impact Virginia, so you can kind of look around some for those of you who might not be as familiar, and then also maybe pass this on to a new service coordinator, somebody who might be new and kind of is one of those resources in your resource list that you find it to be important. And this is also, a real priority of our state early intervention Part C office is to really increase this collaboration across early intervention and early impact Virginia. So we really just want to encourage us all to kind of reach across and learn more, because as you can tell, I'm still exceptionally curious and want to find out more. And I will say that our colleagues at Early Impact Virginia, it's like open arms. They really do help and support us in growing our information to help families. So we have that um, I think, vision and goal in supporting families and also in coaching families, right? Similar perspectives on how we built the family's capacity. So Lisa, do you mind if you're able to share your screen for a moment, do you mind just showing the last slide or two? Our next SC chat is going to be on implicit bias. And how that might be impacting relationships with families and relationships with colleagues, that kind of collaboration across. That is going to be in late winter. So we'll be getting that information out to you soon to see if that's something you'd like to register for. I'd also really love for you all, when you do your survey, to get your professional development contact hour for being here. I'd also love for you guys to put in any ideas you have for what you'd like for us to discuss with you next, what we could bring to you that's really just really super relevant to you all in your work with families. So if you'll check your inbox, you will find a survey there and an email from us. Once you take that survey, that you'll then be able to download your certificate to keep to show that you are here for this professional development credit hour. You can also review prior SC chats that are also the recordings are there. So you have the opportunity to view those for professional development contact hours, along with the substance use disorder workshop that we did too. So y'all, thank you for being here. You know how to reach us and find us if you have further questions or ideas. But definitely, this is our last SC chat of 2024. So we will see you in 2025. A big thank you to Lisa for sharing all of your expertise and passion for young children and families with us.
Thank you. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have additional questions or want more information. I'm happy to help.